So now that we've learned how to sign in, we've learned how to rename our devices, and we've learned then to take those renamed devices and add them to groups. Now what you're going to want to do is add the apps to those groups. And so now you'll go over here to apps and books. And if we just click on that, this is all the apps that we have in the school. So there's a distinction between some of them. The ones here that are black that you can't really touch, and what those are apps that the board has pre-purchased and pre-loaded on our, we might call it our own board store or our own board warehouse, virtual warehouse, I suppose. And so those are already there. So you don't need to buy those, and we'll show you in the training of where those things are at this point. But some of them, the blue ones, we've purchased. And so we've got them, and they're in here. And those are the ones that we can deploy. The other ones don't need to deploy, they're already there. So these are the ones that we can deploy. Purchasing has to go through the principal's office because it's tied to the school credit card. Even the free apps, it's still seen as purchasing, even if it's free. And we can go into that in a little bit more detail in the training, but you need to know that you need to make a request information. There's a form there that's a request form, and I'll do it. So the first thing you want to do when you go in, it's a real good idea. You look here where it says sync licenses, and just hit resync all apps. If you do that, what it's doing is saying anything that's been purchased since the last time this was synced is going to come in here. I'll purchase it in a different program. It's called a volume purchasing program that Apple runs. I'll purchase them, and when they sync, it's brought in here. So you can see any of these in here. The blue ones and the ones. So let's just say you wanted to do bit strips. It's a comic book sort of creation. You'll see here that I went in and bought 500 of these licenses. They're free, so I just bought 500. 0 have yet to be deployed. So we have them, but we're going to figure out what to do with them. So we can click on bit strips, click on the name, and then up will come a lot of information. This is what you need to do. Add assignment by license code by smart group. So this is why it's important. You can only deploy to smart groups. But you have to click on that. And then what you do is go up here and find your group. But we could click this one. This is all my devices. So if I was to click that, we can send it out to all the devices. Or in each of the groups, this is why it's important to be able to create a group. Here's all the groups. You might find one that you think is necessary. We'll use Phys Ed again. Click on Phys Ed. And then what it says here, here's an important part. It shows that there are 6 users in the Phys Ed group. There's the 6 iPads that they have, 6 devices. You can then say, how many do I want to actually use? Okay? And if you said 6, then it would push it out to 6. Okay? And it might be all of them, it might not be. I would get more and more, it might not be all of them. But you might be pushing it out to all your devices and only get some, whatever. And you can go from there. So you would do that, and then there's 2 choices here, auto or on demand. Here's the difference. Auto means that it would go right out to the devices. You wouldn't have to touch the screen at all. It just goes right out. On demand means it would put it in the board listing, and I'll show you where that is. There's an icon on there that says TCDSB purchased apps. It would go in there, and then it would be on demand. People would have to load it on. So what you may want to do this for is there's an app that we could only a few of the kids are going to use, and or you're going to use it for the library ones, and there's only a few you're going to use. This way, you can just say on demand, and then the kids will have to go in and actually do that. If you're pushing on that, so just where we want our devices, our department, the auto. I would ask you not to put auto for any library, any of those common ones, until it runs through the office, because we want to be able, we don't want that loaded up with a whole bunch of different apps. Because remember, the apps, more apps on there, less space for memory, slow things down. So we want to keep those as clean as possible with some of the apps that the staff decides to use. What you can do, actually do that under on Twitter when they're done. So let's take a look at that. I'll show you. Let's look for an example of a school one. So here's a good example. No, that's not a good example. Let's take a look. I think there was one. can see here, like Adobe Reader, for instance, has been pushed out to a certain number of devices, 37 different devices, and it's in some places now. But we can see that it goes down. If you were to delete that app, our hold of them would be a lot more. This is the difference, because remember, now, when we, even if it's a paid app, we have to pay for each individual time it goes on a device. But if it's a paid app, we want to manage those properly. I'm not going to buy a 500, obviously, with a paid app, but we want to make sure we're managing those properly, so if they're being used and how they're being used. But this is how you can push apps right out to the devices that you need to go with. So that's the best way to use that. That's really what you're going to do with it. Remember to resync all apps to begin with, and then to select the ones that are important.